I'm Camille. And last Sunday, my sister laughed at me. Not a playful inside joke kind of laugh, a full condescending cackle, right in front of the whole family. She called me a failure, looked me dead in the eye, and said it like it was some kind of joke. What she didn't know, though? The salary her husband relies on every single month. It's got my name on it. My signature, right there at the bottom of every check. But this isn't just about one moment. That laugh, that jab, it was just the final straw. The truth is, I've been overlooked for years. I work in tech, mostly behind the scenes, the kind of job that doesn't sound flashy at family brunches. I don't post much, I don't brag, I just build. And somewhere along the way, I became the person they forgot to notice. That Sunday was hot, the kind of Texas heat that feels like it's pressing down on your chest. I pulled into the lot off South Lamar, found a tight spot between a Tesla and a rusty pickup, and slid my sunglasses on as I stepped out into the buzz of brunch traffic. The air smelled like coffee and cinnamon and something sweet, and all around me, people were laughing, clinking glasses, peeling off their sunglasses with ease. When I walked onto the patio, they were already there. My parents were adjusting table, settings like they were prepping for a magazine shoot. My uncle was waving his fork around like it was part of the conversation. And then there was Sabrina. Of course, front and center like always, wearing some flowy dress with big sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She was already mid-laugh, surrounded by attention like it was oxygen. I slipped into the empty seat on the far end, the one they always leave open but never really saved for me. Mom smiled when she saw me. "Camille, sweetie, we ordered your usual," she said, like that made up for everything. I smiled back, nodded, said thank you. The table was already thick with talk. Local gossip, someone's new baby, my cousin's engagement. I stirred my coffee slowly, even though it had already cooled. The motion gave my hands something to do, something to anchor me so I didn't drift too far out of place. And then Sabrina leaned forward. Her voice was a little louder than necessary, like she needed the entire patio to hear it. "Guess who just got promoted?" She beamed, eyes sparkling. "Jonah, my husband is now officially senior financial analyst at Vantacor." The name landed in my chest like a stone. Vantacor. I kept my eyes on my coffee. I didn't look at anyone. But I could feel the table shift. Bodies leaning toward Jonah, the magnetic pull of new gossip drawing them in. My mom let out this misty little sigh of pride. My dad clapped Jonah on the back so hard it nearly knocked his mimosa over. And I just sat there, spoon turning in slow circles. Sabrina wasn't done. She looked straight at me, eyes glittering, and said, "Honestly, it's kind of sad, isn't it? Some people our age still haven't figured out what they want to be when they grow up." I froze for a second. Just a second. Mom murmured something about being nice, but her voice was paper thin, barely there. Sabrina shrugged. "I'm just saying, it's not cute anymore to be floating. It's embarrassing." Nobody said anything. Not my mom, not Jonah, not even my uncle who usually has something to say about everything. They didn't know. They didn't know that Vantacor was mine. That every system Jonah's about to oversee, I built it. That the infrastructure keeping, that company's standing came from my sleepless nights and stubbornness and the kind of work no one claps for. While Sabrina bounced from one failed boutique venture to the next, I was building something real, something that mattered, something that didn't need a spotlight to survive. I'd chosen silence, I'd chosen stability. I thought I was choosing peace. But that laugh cracked something open. Let her laugh. Let them all laugh, because soon, she'd learn who really built her throne. I don't remember the exact moment I started shrinking, but I remember what it felt like. Like slipping into a space that got smaller every time someone looked past me. I guess it started early. I was 11 when I built my first website. It was clunky and ugly and completely mine. I stayed up late for weeks teaching myself how to code, piecing it together line by line on the old family desktop that wheezed if you opened more than one tab. The same weekend I finally got it to go live, Sabrina won a dance competition. A regional one, nothing big, but the house was full of balloons and punch and relatives who kept calling her our little star. No one even asked what I'd been working on. I remember sitting in the corner with a paper plate balanced on my knees, watching people fawn over her while I quietly checked my site stats under the table. At 13, I won my school's science fair. First place. I built a working air purification model out of recycled parts. The award ceremony was on a weekday night. My parents said they were busy, something about Dad's work dinner, I think. They sent flowers the next day to the school office. The card was addressed to Carmen Bentley. I kept it anyway, folded it up, and tucked it into the back of my desk drawer. At 17, I earned a full ride to a top-tier tech school across the country. I remember standing in the kitchen, waiting for the congratulations that never really came. My mom hugged me, sure. A quick, distracted one. My dad nodded and said something about being proud, then asked Sabrina if she wanted pancakes. When Sabrina got into a small art college the following year, they threw a dinner party. My mom cried. I never asked for fanfare. I didn't need applause. But after a while, the silence started to echo. Like my achievements only mattered when they could be compared to hers. And usually they couldn't. Not because mine weren't good enough, but because they didn't make for cute Instagram posts or cocktail party conversation. Sabrina failed a lot, actually. There was the online jewelry shop that folded in 6 months, the home decor brand she launched and abandoned after one winter season. Every time, the family wrapped her in praise and casseroles. They celebrated her courage, her creativity. Meanwhile, I was building systems from scratch, working out of coffee shops and server rooms, pulling 16-hour days with Wesley, my business partner, fueling our startup on ramen and cheap coffee. No one asked what I was doing. No one really cared. And maybe that was fine for a while. Maybe I thought it made me strong, being the quiet one, the steady one, the one who didn't need the spotlight to know her worth. But it's different now. Looking back, I realize I didn't disappear. I wasn't drifting or lost or figuring it out, like Sabrina liked to say. I was building. Every overlooked success, every quiet step, I was laying a foundation, one no one else could see, but one strong enough to hold the weight of everything I've become. I used to think invisibility gave me control. That being unnoticed made me immune to their judgments, their expectations. But sitting at that brunch, hearing Sabrina mock me like I was some wandering mess, it felt like a slap I didn't see coming. Not because it hurt more than usual, but because, for the first time, it didn't roll off. For years, I let them write my story in pencil, easy to erase. But now I want to pick up the pen. For years, invisibility kept me safe. But that safety had started to feel like a cage. The invitation came through in a group text. Casual, no pressure, bring something if you want. Classic family barbecue. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying with a thumbs up emoji. Not because I was excited to go, but because that's what you do, right? You show up, even when you know it's going to leave a bruise. By Saturday afternoon, the sun was low and heavy, casting long shadows across the street as I pulled up a few houses down from my parents. I had a bottle of wine on the passenger seat, my peace offering. I parked, slipped through the side gate, and stepped into the blur of chatter and grilled corn smoke and flip-flop slaps against concrete. No one really noticed I'd arrived. That was normal. I found a spot under the old oak tree near the back fence, tucked just far enough out of reach to stay mostly invisible, but close enough to still technically be part of things. Sabrina, of course, was already in full performance mode, laughing too loud, waving her drink like it was part of her outfit. She had that way of holding a crowd, like everything she said deserved applause. I watched her from the edge of the lawn, sipping from a plastic cup of soda, trying to stay small. And then I heard it. I read this article the other day, she said, loud enough to cut through the low hum of conversation. About these companies, run by ghost CEOs, you know? Those mysterious founders who never show their faces? She paused for effect, then laughed. I mean, imagine trusting someone who's too scared to even show up to their own office. Laughter rippled through the group, light, easy. Everyone nodded along like she was sharing some clever, harmless take. I stood perfectly still, plastic cup frozen halfway to my lips. Real leaders don't hide. she continued, twirling her straw like it was part of the act. They show up. They take credit. They own the damn room. More laughter. Another round of nods. My dad was flipping burgers like nothing had happened. My mom chuckled softly into her glass. Jonah kept his eyes on his plate. No one looked at me. Not once. She didn't know. She didn't realize the person she was mocking wasn't some stranger behind a firewall. It was me. Every system Jonah used at work, every dashboard he ran reports from, I built those. Every policy, every back-end tool, every paycheck he cashed, my work, my approval, my name. Sabrina wasn't just off the mark. She was stomping through the foundation I laid like it was nothing. And what stung more than the insult was the fact that she didn't even know she was doing it, because no one had ever told her to stop and think. Not once. They laughed. They let her talk. They let the words hang in the air like gospel while I stood there swallowing every one of them like glass. But something shifted in me then. Quietly. Not an explosion. Just this slow, undeniable click, like a door closing somewhere deep in my chest. Not because I was angry, not even because I wanted revenge, but because I realized I couldn't keep pretending this didn't matter, that I didn't matter. They'd made it easy to stay quiet all these years. Easy to stay small, unnoticed, behind the curtain. But now Sabrina was taking aim without even looking, and the people I used to crave protection from, they just watched. I took another sip of soda. The bubbles stung at the back of my throat, sharp and bitter. And still, I said nothing. But not because I didn't have anything to say. Because I was saving it. Something inside me had hardened, not into rage, but into resolve. I won't be quiet forever. It was a quiet Thursday morning. The kind where the house felt still, like the world hadn't fully woken up yet. I was in my home office, coffee growing cold beside me, scrolling through budget revisions for one of our newer health analytics projects. It was work I could do. Half asleep by now. Precise, familiar, grounding. Then the alert popped up. System access. Unusual login path. Query initiated from internal HQ terminal user ID, S. Bain. I blinked at the screen. My fingers hovered above the keyboard as my heart ticked up just slightly. Sabrina. For a moment, I didn't move. I just stared at the alert. It wasn't uncommon for junior staff to poke around where they shouldn't. Curiosity happens. But this was different. She wasn't just clicking around aimlessly. She had searched directly for budget authorizations, specifically executive-level ones. My level. I clicked into the tracking window and watched her digital footsteps unfold in real time. She was pulling up archived budget approvals, filtering them by author initials. CBI leaned back in my chair, arms folded, the weight of what was happening settling across my chest like something too familiar to be surprising, but too sharp to ignore. She was following a thread she didn't even realize she'd tugged on. One query at a time, she was getting closer. To the truth I'd buried beneath contracts and silence. Every major initiative at Vanticor. Every pivot, every hire, every raise. Signed off by the mysterious co-founder listed in the system as CB. She had no idea she was chasing me. Part of me wanted to shut it down. Right then. Trigger the security protocol. Reroute her to a dead end. Screen. Send a quiet email reminding her of access boundaries. It would take 10 seconds. But another part of me stayed still. Let her see it. Let her keep going. Not because I wanted to catch her or punish her, but because this wasn't something I could keep covering up. Not anymore. She'd started pulling. At the hem of something she thought was decorative. She didn't know it was the thread holding the whole thing together. I toggled into security view again and watched her searches unfold. Budget approvals, founders' signatures, cross-referenced project IDs. She wasn't skilled exactly, but she was persistent. And persistence has its own kind of power. There was no telling how much she understood. But I could feel it building. Like the moment just before a glass tips off the edge of a table. I reached for my coffee, took a slow sip. Bitter and cold. And still, I didn't stop her, because it was time. She could laugh at me at family dinners, toss off careless jokes about ghost founders, pretend the world she lived in had built itself. But that illusion? It wasn't going to survive this. So I sat there, in the stillness of my office, the hum of the servers filling the quiet, and I let her walk deeper into the maze. One search, one document, one reveal at a time. Let her follow the thread. The message came in just past noon. Simple. Direct. We need to talk. Now. S. Bain. I stared at it for a long moment, the words pulsing on my screen like a low warning. She knew. Or at least, she knew enough to be dangerous. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The next move was already clear. We met in the server wing, far from the glass-walled conference rooms and nosy hallway glances. The space was cold. Quiet. Humming faintly with the low buzz of machines and the weight of everything neither of us had ever said out loud. She was already there when I walked in, arms crossed, foot tapping, eyes hard. "You lied to me," she said. The second the door shut behind me. Her voice was sharp and low, barely holding itself together. "All this time, you sat at my table, you smiled at my jokes, and you let me, God, you let me humiliate myself." I didn't answer right away. I gave her space, let the words settle like dust in the air. "I didn't lie," I said quietly. "You just never asked who built the company," she laughed. Bitter and humorless. "Oh, come on, don't play clever. You knew exactly what you were doing. You hid, you stayed quiet, you watched me talk about your work like it was someone else's." "You made it easy to stay quiet," I said, still calm. It was the only way I knew I'd be hurt at all. That hit something. I saw her flinch, just barely. "You could have told me," she snapped, stepping closer. "You could have stopped me from looking like a damn fool in front of everyone." "You never listened long enough for that," I replied. My tone never rose. "You were too busy laughing. Too busy deciding what I was worth." Her mouth tightened. Her jaw worked like she was grinding her pride down into something she could spit out. "You think this makes you better than me? Because you stayed in the shadows while the rest of us lived real lives?" "No," I said. "I don't think I'm better. I think I'm tired. Of pretending I'm not here. Of letting you talk like I'm not in the room." The air between us crackled. Years of unspoken resentment. Of slights. Too small to point at but sharp enough to scar. "You always acted so small," she said, quieter now, but not kinder. "Like you were afraid to take up space." "I wasn't afraid," I said. "I was building something. You just never noticed because it wasn't loud enough for you." That silenced her. For a long moment, we just stood there. Two women, carved from the same family but shaped by completely different stories. Then she said, "You don't get to rewrite this. You don't get to suddenly show up and act like you've been here all along." I tilted my head, studying her. "I don't need to rewrite anything. I just won't disappear to make you comfortable anymore." The words landed hard. Not because they were loud, but because they were true. She stepped back, a crack showing in her armor. Her arms dropped to her sides. Her eyes darted away, toward the hum of the servers. "If you think this changes anything," she muttered, voice raw now, "you're wrong." "I don't need it to change anything," I said, "but I won't keep letting you swing and act surprised when you hit something real." She didn't reply. She just stood there, breathing like every inhale was an effort. And then she turned. No dramatic exit. No final word. Just footsteps, clipped and sharp, echoing down the hall as she walked away. She didn't slam the door. She didn't look back. But that silence, that tension in the air, it said everything. She was shaken, and the war she thought she could win with laughter, it had just stepped into new territory. By Monday morning, the shift was already in the air. It was subtle at first. Quiet glances, stalled conversations when I walked by, smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. The kind of chill that doesn't come from air conditioning, but from suspicion. Manufactured doubt. Sabrina had gotten to work quickly. I recognized the strategy instantly. Soft planting of questions disguised as concern. just making sure everything's above board, wondering if the company's leadership is really what it claims to be. She didn't need to accuse me of anything directly. She just had to raise her eyebrows in the right rooms, whisper to the right people, and let the doubt grow legs on its own. And it did. By lunchtime, I'd been excluded from a strategy email chain I usually led. A junior analyst who used to greet me with a smile barely looked up when we passed in the hallway. My name hadn't changed. My title hadn't changed. But the air around it had. I sat in my office, city skyline stretching, out behind me, thinking about how easy it is to unravel trust when the foundation's been hidden too long. Not because it wasn't strong, but because people fear what they don't see. That afternoon, I scheduled a leadership meeting. No agenda, no subject line, just a time and a room. 12 people filed in. Department heads, team leads, senior, staff. Their eyes held curiosity, maybe unease. I didn't flinch. "I'll keep this brief," I said, my voice steady, calm. "There have been questions about transparency, about who's leading what, so let's clear the air." No one moved. This company wasn't built in spotlight. It was built in code and contracts and quiet choices that prioritized stability over noise. I've stayed behind the scenes because that's where I do my best work, not because I had something to hide. A few people shifted in their seats. One or two nodded. Most just listened. I won't be apologizing for how we've built this company. And I won't tolerate the erosion of its integrity either. If anyone has concerns about leadership, bring them to me, directly. The message landed. There were no outbursts, no questions. Just a new kind of silence, tense, but grounded. After the meeting, I sent a quiet request to HR. I didn't name names, I didn't have to. Just asked for a full review of internal communications over the past 2 weeks. Slack threads, whispered complaints, off-the-record coffee chats. Follow the breadcrumbs. Trace the cracks. 2 days later, the report landed on my desk. It was clean, detailed, and damning. The whisper campaign was no longer a rumor. It was a breach. Sabrina had used her position to destabilize leadership trust, not for the company's good, but to save face. The next morning, I called her into a private conference room. No audience, no assistants, just us. She sat stiffly, eyes already defensive, like she'd come ready to argue. "I didn't give her that. This isn't personal," I said. "It's about the integrity of the company," she scoffed. "You built your life in the shadows, and now you want to lecture me about transparency?" I didn't react. "You weaponized speculation. You used your position to seed distrust, and that crossed a line." Her jaw clenched. "You have 2 options," I continued. "You can accept a formal disciplinary review and complete a mentorship program to rebuild internal trust. Or you can resign." Silence stretched between us. Her pride was fighting her. Logic. Hard. I could see it in her eyes, the heat of humiliation turning to something almost fragile. She blinked fast. Her voice came out low. "I'll stay." There was a tremble she couldn't quite hide. She didn't say thank you. She didn't apologize. But she accepted the terms and stood up slowly, the weight of consequence heavy on her shoulders. I watched her go, and for the first time I didn't feel victory. I just felt done. Maybe we were never sisters the way we were meant to be. But the battle was over, and that was enough. The rooftop buzzed softly with music and laughter. Fairy lights strung like constellations overhead, casting a warm glow across the evening. It was Vantacor's 5-year anniversary, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a ghost at my own party. I arrived alone. No fanfare, no entourage. Just a simple navy dress, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are, even if no one clapped when you became her. People noticed me this time. Not just a passing glance or a polite nod, but real recognition. A few coworkers came up to say hello, genuinely, not because they had to, not because of a title, but because they saw me. I moved through the crowd slowly, letting myself absorb it. The sound of glasses clinking, the scent of rosemary flatbread and champagne, the occasional burst of laughter that didn't sting for once. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was sneaking through someone else's success. I belonged here. I always had. When it was time for speeches, Wesley kicked things off with his usual charm, thanking the early investors and cracking jokes about server meltdowns. And the year we nearly missed payroll. The crowd laughed, easy and warm. Our HR lead spoke next, offering a toast to resilience, to vision, and to the quiet leadership that often goes unseen. And then it was my turn. I stepped up to the mic. No note cards, no dramatic pause, just me. We often celebrate the faces in front of the spotlight, I said, my voice steady, carried on the hush that followed. But tonight, I want to thank those who built the foundation, especially the ones no one ever saw, the ones who stayed late, worked quietly, who chose consistency over credit. This company was built on their shoulders, and it's stronger because of them. A small wave of murmured agreement moved through the crowd. I didn't smile big. I didn't linger. I just stepped down, let the moment land where it needed to, and returned to the edge of the gathering. That's when I saw her. Sabrina stood a few feet away near the railing, half shadowed by the lights. She looked different tonight. No dramatic gestures, no too loud laugh. Just her, in a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, holding a glass of something clear and untouched. Our eyes met. And for a second we just looked. She didn't smile. I didn't either. But she gave a small nod, tight, quiet, like a tiny white flag fluttering between two people who might never say the words out loud. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't regret. It was acknowledgement. And somehow, that was enough. Later, when most of the guests had drifted toward the elevator or the bar, I found myself alone at the dessert table, spearing a slice of strawberry shortcake onto a paper plate. The city stretched out behind me, lights glittering, windows blinking open and shut like fireflies across the skyline. I took a bite, slow and thoughtful. Sweet, but not too much. Just enough. The night had settled into something quieter now, something gentler. The war was over. The wounds were still there, sure, but they didn't burn the way they used to. I leaned on the edge of the rooftop, the breeze soft against my arms, and looked out at the city that had seen my becoming. Sometimes the deepest victories are the quiet ones, the ones where you don't get applause, you just get peace. Sometimes healing doesn't look like a hug or an apology. It looks like a nod across a rooftop, a slice of cake, a name finally spoken with respect. And sometimes when you stop waiting to be seen, people finally open their eyes. Have you ever found healing where you least expected it? Tell me your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if this stayed with you, if you felt something in it, go ahead and subscribe. You're not invisible here.